Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Tonight we make our first visit to the Vintage Theater's new home in Aurora. We get all the details from executive producer Debbie Laureta and artistic director Craig A. Bond. We also find out about their current production, The Joy Luck Club. I want to say welcome home to your new space right here in Aurora. The Vintage Theater's new home is this beautiful established theater space. How did this happen? How did you get this space when we found out that you were leaving your old home?
Well, I went on my list, Craig's list, and was looking for possible spaces for a home. And we had looked at 80 different locations throughout Denver metro, and I just happened to run across an advertisement from Corner Equity Realty, and they were like, "Have you ever thought about looking at the Dayton Street Theater and coming to Aurora?" And I said, "All right, well, let's look at it."
Had you been here before?
I had been here, but it had been some time ago. The theater's only 4 years old, but I had known Jeffrey Nicholson and worked with him on a board of directors with Colorado Theater Guild, and so it had been a while.
And that's who the main theater, the main stage, is named for.
Yes, he was the original director and founder for Shadow Theater Company, and this space was created for that company. So, yes.
Was it a hard choice to leave Denver? Was there any psychological hurdle you had to get over to do that?
I think it was a hard choice. We had told our patrons we were going to do everything in our power to stay as close as we could to our original location, but we looked high and low. We really, really come to the city of Denver for a space that we were going to convert into a theater, and we just could not find anything suitable.
So your search went outside of spaces that were currently being used for performance. You were open to any kind of space.
Mostly that's what we looked at, warehouse spaces. We looked very seriously at a former hardware store, just a lot of different types of spaces.
It's difficult to find the right mix of space because you have to look at the accessibility issues, the neighborhood, you want the restaurant, you want parking. And
if you were going to have to move, you wanted to improve some of those.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
because we've been known for our very intimate work, small space, and two-sided, kind of thrust. And this afforded us the opportunity to have a proscenium kind of stage, as well as a secondary space. That was the great thing. It wasn't a lateral move. It was let's move ahead and see how we can grow into this space for the next 5-10 years and beyond.
You talked about that. We remember the very first time we visited you, you gave us a tour of the library of costumes and props that you had stored in the cellar there. And I call it a cellar rather than a basement,
right,
just because of the ceiling height.
Right.
And now you can really sort of stretch out here. What is that like?
I don't know if the stretch out is great, but I'll tell you, we've almost filled the space. It's amazing how much theater have in general. I think you have to take everything and put it all away and file it away, and then when you bring it all out, none of our costumes are even here. That's how much we've filled this space just with sets and lights, and so it's amazing how much we have grown over the 10 years.
Well, moving into this space, this was an established theater. It had all of the equipment already, the seats, the sound, the
Light
lights,
boards, all that.
Everything was here. So we essentially brought a second theater into this. It's like moving two households into one house. And eventually we will have our second theater up and running, and a lot of the equipment we brought with us will be utilized over there. But in the meantime, we're trying to find space to put it all away, and it's been challenging.
So you'll be almost replicating the original Vintage Theater because you've maintained the theater seats, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that was part of the plan too. I think that there was a sense that we didn't want to lose the intimate work, and if we had a secondary space, would it still afford us the ability to program for one set productions that have maybe 1 to 8 characters in them, and to keep that really intimate nature. So the next space is actually only 3 rows deep. Our last was 4. It'll be very similar.
With the same seats, so it will feel familiar as well.
Absolutely, it'll feel like home.
When you took on this move, we've already established that it's a much larger venue. Was there a concern about the financial risk that you would take to take over something so much larger? Because we've seen the impact for other long-established theater companies when they try to grow.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we could both speak to it, but it's one of those things where it felt like we had to take a leap of faith with vintage again. I mean, 4 years ago, we said, oh my God, we're going to go from doing 2 shows annually to 8. Then we did 12. Then we went back to 8. So it was one of those things where we started to
We
master.
went back to 8 because somebody needs vacation
Right,
somewhere.
right. So we started to look at, okay, what size and scope do we want to be? Then when you come to this facility, it's, 3 times the amount of rent that you have to pay. And many people don't realize we purchased the building. And now we have to do a major capital.
You've purchased this building.
We purchased
so you're
this
not
building.
tenants.
We're not
No,
tenants.
we own
So
it.
this is it. So we have to now continue to raise money to pay down that mortgage all the way through. So this is like a long-term investment. And we went into it knowing that.
But there's something about a smaller theater having a smaller house. You can only sell so many tickets, but then again, you only have to sell so many tickets. But as I look through here, it is larger. But I remember many of your productions in your previous home that you couldn't get a ticket no matter who you begged because the runs were that
Right,
successful.
right.
And then you'll still have a smaller space for the smaller works. Does that mean that we can see longer runs of some of the more popular shows like you did with Avenue Q?
I think that you'll look at our second year for 2013 being a different year programming wise for us. We have to figure out the space again because it's a challenge for us. So, when we're drawing 50, 60, 70 people and now you have 135 seats to fill, should we look at smaller runs? Do you look at what type of work, if you feel that it has the momentum going in, how long should you run a production? So you have to kind of calculate all that and then map it out with the season. And we also want to allow rentals in here. We want to have maybe another company come on board and be able to, rub elbows with another company. I think is a great opportunity.
And you used to have sort of late night programming and education programming, and you'll absolutely be able to do that here.
Yes.
Yes, one of the greatest things that I am excited about is the lobby space. Because before, I mean, literally it was a 10 by 10 area. Now we have the ability to seat 60 people out there at tables. It's a full bar and liquor license. So there's a great potential for us to do like after show parties and maybe sing-alongs and various works, maybe comedy.
Cabaret.
Yeah, cabaret. I mean, there's lots of opportunity there for us to hone a new source of revenue beyond just the ticket sales and donations.
So when you were making that extensive search to find a place, and you got over the hurdle of leaving Denver to be here in Aurora, well, there's already a tradition of theater nearby, so you're sort of expanding this neighborhood. What is this neighborhood going to bring to you and to your long-term patrons?
Well, this area of Aurora is actually considered an arts district. They have an arts walk on the second Friday of every month so that they don't compete with other art walks on the first Friday of every month.
That was pretty smart program.
Yes.
Yes. There are a lot of galleries along Colfax, and we have a gallery within our lobby that will become part of that art walk experience, in addition to the Aurora Fox Theater. So there's a lot of arts right around the area, and we are going to be very active with the Aurora Arts District.
Does that have an impact on your planning for SCFD grants, that sort of thing, because you're in a different
County,
Yeah.
yes, because it is in a different county. Actually, the funding went up for us, which is great. Great news. That was another perk of moving here. The thing is, I want to say, is that the city of Aurora has been very gracious and accommodating. They are looking at taking that arts district and investing thousands of dollars in new lighting and ambiance. They really want it to be a cultural center, and I think that we are the next cornerstone of that. So that's great news for us.
It's a big responsibility, too.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
They're also courting restaurants to come into the neighborhood, because that's one thing that I think a lot of the patrons are going to find it a little more difficult to find nearby restaurants. The way they were able to park and walk to very close restaurants to Vintage before, but Aurora is addressing that already, and they're looking for restaurants to come into the area and be part of the arts district, which is really fun.
Well, now that we understand what it took to get you here, you're jumping in with both feet. In a matter of days, you're opening your first production in your new home. And this was already planned in part of the season. So what has this move done to impact the production of the Toilet Club?
You know, lots of subtle changes, I think. It's interesting to have to figure out a space again. I think that we had done a great job before knowing how to project for intimacy, those kind of things, vocally. And when you move to a space like this, you have to find, okay, is it echoey, is it not? How does it line up? What are the acoustics all around? That's the biggest challenge. Also, this afforded us the opportunity to actually add more people to the production. So I was thrilled with the Joy Luck Club because it called for about 12 Asian actors, and currently we have 21 Asian actors in this production. So we added more characters, and it was just been a great push out to that community, so I'm thrilled.
When we look at the stage, we can see that it appears to be not only larger in terms of square footage,
Yes.
but of course we can vary the levels like you couldn't do before.
Right.
Did that mean that a whole new change of planning for the design for this show because it was already in place, or did you know you were moving here before?
We actually launched the design about 6 weeks ago, and we did know we were going to be here. That was helpful. And the other thing that I started to do right away was I started to rehearse here, so that I could figure out the space acoustically and how
Luckily,
to...
you got to be the first director for the Vintage
Yeah,
Theater Company.
It worked out really well.
Yes, and so it was a really interesting move for us. I will say that the other challenges of this, design-wise, are to look at the scale and scope, because when you now have the ability to play to 9 rows deep and 135 people and double it, what does that look like? And if you are only drawing 40 people, that's a different feel to an audience as well. You've got to create that synergy of emotion around it. So we're looking at it from the marketing and publicity side as well.
Will it be general seating like it was in your old home, or is it assigned seating when you're ticketing?
Initially, it's going to be general seating. We hope to get a ticketing system and be able to start doing assigned seating and have people choose their seats. But
And that way you can keep
we're
the
taking
audience.
yes, we're taking it
controlled.
one step at a time right now, and that's like down the road a few months, but we hope to do that.
How did you choose the Joy Luck Club?
You know, I'm a risk taker, and I know that you know
Really?
that.
Grey Gardens in that little space, 2 other musicals, a regional premiere, Equus. Yeah, you're. I would say that you've earned the title of risk taker.
I think so. And my board of directors was very much concerned with this title.
Really,
Not-
what were their concerns?
The concern was, how are we going to draw enough people from the Asian community out? Because
to
typically...
attend or to be in
To
it?
audition, to
properly-
audition.
to properly cast the show, because I personally felt it was vital to the show to be able to properly cast it. And we had never really seen that many Asian actors at our season auditions.
Maybe 2 out of 300. I mean,
And
to give you
not
an
necessarily
idea.
auditioning to play an Asian character.
Right.
Right.
But this has been one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my tenure, because here we are, and I just have never had an experience where people continually seek me out because they want to be part of this. They want to define how talented Denver and metro area is.
And how diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're thrilled, and I was amazed at the outcome. It's a lovely production. It's just, I can't wait for you to see it.
I'm eager to see it because I happen to like this book. I do like the play. I'm eager to see the actors in Colorado that I don't get to see ever, if not often,
Right.
in this place. So it's really an important milestone for your company, not just because you have a new home, not just because you're taking on yet another daring work that's allowing you to reach actors that we normally don't get to see very often.
Right.
But you're also upping the ante in terms of what the stakes are in this larger space. So how do you describe what's happening for Vintage Theater right now? Beside frenetic energy.
When we moved into our space on 17th Avenue, like Craig said, we were doing 2 shows a year. And literally, there were some shows we only had 10 people in the audience. So to take a leap from that point to taking on full-time rent, full-time theater producing was enormous for us. And I feel like this is about the same level of risk in my mind as that was 4.5 years ago, because we have grown so much. So it feels kind of the same way as that did back then.
Yeah, and I think that for us to grow to the size and scope that we have during a recession is very, it speaks volumes about the company, because I think that there's a quality of work that people have really appreciated. And now, how can we still maintain that, elevate it, and increase the audience? That's the next challenge. And it's fun. It's fun to always have another thing to tackle. I mean, that's why you do it, right?
Yeah. It seems as though the entire company is all pulling together. We're only a few days away from your opening, and I can't wait to come and see opening night for the Joy Luck Club.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we meet 2 of the cast members from the Joy Luck Club, Jennifer So and Kim Yan. Well, thank you for making a little time for us before you begin one of your final rehearsals for the Joy Luck Club.
You're welcome. Thanks. They're exciting.
So what is it like to not only be in this important play that, it's not done that often, but what is it like to be in the first production of this theater's new home?
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, it's like we're kind of bringing in the energy of this new place, and not only the energy of this new play, but the energy of the new place, and to see it kind of blossom into.
Yeah. It's very historic.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're christening this new building, and it's really exciting.
What is that like for you, knowing that you're getting a chance to tell this story in a way that many Coloradans, as you pointed out, may not have ever had a chance to see on stage?
Well, I mean, not only is it a Chinese or an Asian play, I mean, everyone has a mother, everyone's a daughter, everyone can relate to this play. It's not just an Asian play. So it makes it, so it's really just more of a community play.
That's a very complicated relationship, mothers and daughters, as we all know. And you're playing mother and daughter.
Yes.
Do you find that you're bringing some of your own mother-daughter history to playing this part?
Yes.
I think so, definitely.
Very much so,
For me,
actually.
For me, my dad is, he was the one who immigrated over. So I don't have like a mother-daughter in a sense. Like I have some with my own mother, but I think my dad's influence is influencing my acting as well.
Yeah? In what way?
So, just with how he, like when he immigrated over, and kind of like he went to Canada first, and then he transferred to Iowa for a different major, and kind of, I don't know, it was not an easy thing, I don't think.
I think that we often
Yeah.
forget how difficult it is for immigrants anywhere, and from any community. We often hear the discussion focused on Latino immigrants, but we don't often hear it expanded to all sorts of immigrants, and yet we get to do that in this story.
Oh yeah, I mean my parents immigrated here from China to Hong Kong and here, and I'm the firstborn to be born here, and so I know all about immigrant parents and growing up first generation. So.
And the funny thing is, this story focusing on mothers and daughters is a way to let us see some of that world.
Yeah.
It has that universality that you were alluding to about.
Yes.
We all have those moments with our mothers and daughters, but the playwright talks about how it's very unique mother and daughter relationship about wanting to be American and still wanting to be Chinese. How do you tap into that part of the storyline?
Well, I guess I live it. My mother is extremely Chinese. She has extremely limited English, and I am very American, even though which is really actually very interesting. I'm actually playing one of the parts of the mother, so actually kind of seeing my mother's point of view, and of course knowing my own way, the way I've been growing up, and my mother having the bad accent and embarrassing me in front of my friends. I mean, it's just.
And now you're playing
and now
that sort of woman.
Yeah, and just to see, and it's interesting, and talking to the other actors and having similar experiences too, and relating to that with the other characters.
How was it for you to find your relationship as actors, as mother-daughter?
Well, I mean, I think we have similar backgrounds. I mean, I'm full Chinese, and she's half, and just being able to, relate to the Chinese part of our background and be able to relate it to each other, and her father being Chinese, and then my parents, and we discussed that, and just being able to relate with that, and just finding that lineage, because we bring that character of culture and tradition and superstition almost, and that almost like the backbone. It's like, don't walk under a ladder, even though it's not written anywhere, but we all know not to do that. But
right.
It's kind of like a string that kind of holds us together. And then even though, the daughter may not believe in that anymore, but it's still something that, oh yeah, I understand that. I know where that comes from, even though I may not believe in it.
And there's something that we all understand, the traditions of family getting passed down and younger people wanting to embrace new things. So food can become important as a way to stay connected, games, other traditions. Are you finding yourself having those sort of sense memories of your own experiences when we're seeing some of these events unfold?
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
Food is just so important in the Chinese community, in the Asian community, I believe. I mean, I think that's how my family really expressed how they loved us, because it was through food and prosperity and happiness. It's all about the food.
Whenever I go back and visit family, lunch is always like 2 hours long at a dim sum restaurant, because it's all about the conversation and all about the visiting with everyone and keeping that family spark alive.
So did either of you have to learn how to play mahjong?
Well, I played as a little girl for fun, but and of course my mother still plays with her friends, so she kind of, retutored me on how to do it, and so it's interesting. Here I am, she's reteaching me, and then there's a scene where we actually teach, or one of the other daughters, not my his daughter, but one of the Jing Mei. So it's like, okay, I guess I could use that.
With all those memories of learning how to play mahjong.
Yeah.
You said that your mother had a limited way to express English. Do you think that she would be able to come and see this performance, and do you hope that she will?
Oh, she will. She probably won't understand it. She'll just be watching the movements. She'll maybe understand a little bit. My dad will just be watching and just knowing that I'm up there. And just be.
I think they might understand more than you give them credit for.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I think a lot of this play is so recognizable, mothers and daughters, that whether there's a language barrier or not, the work that you're about to do is really going to help surface that story for all of us who've experienced it before.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's never really wanted to see any other of my things that I do, so she's really excited that I'm doing this actually, and. She's like, oh yeah, here, borrow this mahjong set. Here's this bracelet. You should wear this.
That bracelet?
Yeah. She gave me this bracelet. I'm like, oh, I can't fit this in my hand. It's like, no, you have to, put oil and slide it in your wrist, and so she's really excited that I'm doing this play.
Do you have any touchstones that you're bringing with you to this play, like her bracelet?
I have this necklace, but it's not jade or anything. My cousin gave it to me, and he was sick and everything. So it's kind of my connection to him, and even though he's not here, he's still here. So just like anything to connect with the play and connect with the character of losing someone.
Well, I happen to love this book. I loved the movie. I haven't seen it on stage in a long time, and certainly never in Colorado. And I'm so anxious to see your work here in Vintage Theater's new home. I know it's going to be a wonderful run. Thank you for making time.
Thank you for having us here.
Now Colorado Theater Guild's own Gloria Shandstrom brings us along for the opening night reception for the first production at the Vintage Theater Company's new home.
Absolutely amazed that we went from a 70-seat theater to a 135-seat theater, and we were full for opening night. I was looking around and I thought, oh my gosh, this is more people than we've ever had at a show before. It was great, and everybody had a really good time.
And Craig Bond continues the tradition started at the Vintage Theater Company before this important move.
Our typical wonderful tradition is that we always give a unique martini glass at each one of our openings because we formed the company over martinis all those years ago.
The Vintage Theater is another important component to the Arts District in Aurora. Don't miss their current production, The Joy Luck Club. Visit vintagetheater.com for more details.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.